Hello everyone, and today we'll be discussing the problems with the Shadowbringers relics, from the individual steps to the overall grind, and comparing it with past relic steps as well. Just to say, these are my personal opinions regarding the relic steps, but I would love to hear others' opinions too. The first point I would like to delve into is the lack of varied content. Now, there are certainly optimal ways to complete each relic step, but during the release, where they hadn't already buffed the drop rates, it was a considerable grind to get 60 token drops from the Fates, as well as the other 18 plus 18 tokens that had a chance to drop from Fates in the Stormblood or Heavensward areas, but this could also be done through the Heavensward and Stormblood Alliance raids. Now, I felt this step was an exhausting grind, and one that could be quite painful depending on which raid you got or how the group went. But the Shadowbringers relics leave us with little choice on how to obtain the items for each step. Even the bitter memories, which only required 6, well, we all just spammed anti-tower for an hour to get them. Much less time consuming, but overall not that interesting. The Law Order's weapon step required 15 loathsome memories. This is completed either through 50 runs of Crystal Tower raids, which, let's be honest, it's always Circus Tower, which I'm sure we all despise at this point and groan eternally whenever it comes into the Alliance roulette. Or 5 from a single run of Castrum LL. Though the spawn times for Castrum LL were much less reliable, and the success of each run was a gamble, especially prior to all the buffs, and it is certainly a risk to take and a huge time investment, myself included, being in groups that had failed after waiting around an hour for the instance. One more example is the Time 1 artifacts acquired through Delaware Regine or DR. This instance, on release, was chaotic, punishing, and long. Depending upon the group, it'd be 45 minutes to an hour per run. With 15 Time 1 artifacts needed, and only 1 gained per DR run, this was challenging and an immense time investment. The other option is Palace of the Dead, but the drop rates were random and only above floor 50 or 60. There were instances of friends only getting 1 drop in a few hours, or others getting 5 in a few hours. It was heavily unreliable for the time investment. My next point is to compare the Heavensward relics, which certainly takes more time, however, does feel less of a grind for me. And this may be due to the varied ways in which you can obtain the items for the relic steps. An example, many of the steps require poetics to buy the items, but we all know that poetics can be obtained through the different roulettes, daily roulettes, and we do this whilst benefiting from leveling other classes, guild rewards, and seals. Some of the items can also be gained from crafting, desynthing certain items, running Alexander 1 to 4, hunt seals, Grand Company seals, and Beast Tribe tokens. There are also quests and weekly quests to obtain the items as well. Despite the longer time investment for the Heavensward relics, the rewards and content are much more varied overall for a player to gain the items needed. It gives the players the active choice of what to engage in, how to get these items, and once again there are certainly optimizations, easier ways to gain them, but it never feels linear. It never feels there is one way to do one step and you have to do it 15 times. So, how does the latest and final step of the Shadowbringers relics, the one that was released in 5.5, compare to its previous step? Well, despite these issues, it's a lot more varied. With the additional area of Zadnor and its 3 zones to potentially gain the items from, alongside the option to do the Alexander, Omega or Eden raids, It's felt more of a natural gain of the items whilst doing content over the focus grind that it has been in the previous steps. The final step especially, with having the options to do DR, DLR, level 70 dungeons or Heaven on High, there is so much choice there, and the increased number of items that drop from DR and DLR makes the last relic step quite easy, in fact, and a very much welcome surprise from the previous stages. However, does this make up for the previous grindy content we've slogged through? Perhaps over the course of the patch releases, yes. But despite only doing a few relics myself, I've felt quite burned out from it. And this leads on to my final point. Is the opportunity to gain the relics time sensitive? This relates to how active Bosnia, Castrum, Delabrum Reginae, Zadnor and Deliada will continue to be in a few months' time. For those who haven't started the relics yet or haven't even unlocked the areas, will it be too late for them? Some of the steps require players to complete Castrum LL, DR and DLR, as well as ranking up and unlocking all areas of Bosnia and Zadnor. This is easy now because everyone is doing it, and despite its scaling, it's likely we'll get another abandoned instance with barely any activity by the time Endwalker comes around. As I'm experiencing the Heavensward relic, despite its ease due to being level 80 now, there have been no content blocks or issues with completing the required steps. There's been no separate instances, just dungeons, raids, or exchanging poetics for tokens. I suppose the argument is it'll no longer be needed due to new gear, new best in slot weapons, but doesn't this create a wall between this content for new players? Does this cut off all of the, in reality, enjoyable, challenging, and interesting content that this section has to offer, regardless of the relic grind? These are all of the thoughts I've had during this process, and certainly my first experience of the relic grind as of yet. I'm aware that previous steps, especially a Realm Reborn relic, was arduous, and even now, with the nerfing of the steps, it's still a considerable grind. Much more lengthy than Shadowbringers, from what I've been told. I'm not necessarily saying that the Shadowbringers relic has been awful. It's been fun, for the most part, especially experiencing it with friends, and it has certainly gotten better in the last step. But what I did experience was burnout at points. But I hope this has explained some reasoning behind these thoughts. Thank you all for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day.